Hi all, and welcome to the 7 lectures on Austrian School of Economics. The topic of today is technology. The reference book is always the same, is the Principles of Economics from Seyfdin Amos, and in particular is the 7th chapter of his book. Let's start as always quoting one of the Austrian authors. In this case is again Ludwig von Mises. He wrote, "What is wrong with our age is precisely the widespread ignorance of the role which these policies of economic freedom played in the technological evolution of the last 200 years. People fell prey to the fallacy that the improvement of the methods of production was contemporaneous with the policy of laissez-faire only by coincidence. The process of technological advancement is the continuous development and application of the new and better ideas and methods to the process of production, leading to a progressive increase in output per unit of time. Capital accumulation will quickly run into diminishing returns without a technological advancement. And for example, if you have a fisherman begins using a fishing rod, his output increases. But without technology advancement, he will continue to invest in more fishing rods to the point that he had no use for more fishing rods. And the extra investment was just providing him with rods he will never need to use. He would, of course, stop investing at that point. But if the fisherman is able to think and come up with new ideas for technologies to deploy capital to create, he can create new capital goods that are more productive than the fishing rod. This process will increase productivity without running diminishing returns." So this is one of the reasons why technological advancement is so important. Let's now move to technology and labor. The substitution, again quoting Ludwig von Mises, the substitution of more efficient methods of production for less efficient ones does not render labor abundant, provided there are still material factors available whose utilization can increase human well-being. On the contrary, it increases output and thereby the quantity of consumer goods. The rise of industrialization has been accompanied by incessant complaints about technology replacing labor. On intuitive and superficial level, this appears to make sense. The most famous and original example of rage against the machine in response to the fear of job loss came from Ludites, who organized campaigns to break automated looms, which they argued would destroy the livelihood of the British textile worker. In the same way, mechanized farming would put farmers out of work, and steam engine was going to make large chunks of the labor force redundant. After more than 2 centuries of automation and industrialization, we find that the vast majority of British adults who want employment can find it, and the wages that far exceed those of Ludites fought for. So they can find work, there is more work, and the wage is much higher than the one of Ludites fought for. Even as population of Britain continued to increase, more jobs continued to be found, and Brits today earn more and work in much better condition than their ancestors did in the 18th centuries. As Ludites and Marxists been right, one would imagine that 2 centuries of technological progress would have left absolutely nobody with a job today, let alone leaving them with better jobs. The root of Ludites' confusion was their treatment of labor as if it were a consumer goods acquired for the utility he provides, rather than a producer good acquired for the production of consumer goods. In fact, labor is a producer good. A consumer good for which a superior alternative can be found is no longer demanded and can lose its economic value, which is what happened to the typewriters after the invention of computers. But the demand for a producer good is not necessarily contingent on its utility to the purchaser. It is dependent on the good's usability for production. Even if a factor of production was to be replaced in one production process, it would still be available if it could be utilized in another production process. labor can be redirected to other jobs or industries, and being made by human time is also the ultimate resource, whose scarcity underpins the scarcity of all other resources. As long as humans have unmet needs, there will be avenues for directing human labor to meet those needs. We will never run out of jobs because we can always use more humans, making more scarce products to meet other humans' ever-increasing wants. Scarcity can never be eliminated because time is always scarce, work can never end, and men can only choose which task to prioritize. The more tasks he can delegate to machines, the more time he has to perform many of the infinite number of tasks he would like to carry out but cannot because of the scarcity of his time. From the domestication of the horse to have built the HHM Algeciras, it was a big ship for transportation, the world's larger container ship, there has been a succession of invention, and somehow the job in transportation industry have yet to be eliminated. But they are even much more than in the past, so not only were eliminated, but they are even many more. As technology advances and productivity increases, each person's production rises above their daily survival needs. Scope of specializations then emerges and productivity increase, also in the transportation industry, making it becoming feasible for free people to willingly want to work in transportation. As technology and productivity continue to improve, the conditions and pay for jobs in transportation continue to improve. And now let's connect technology and productivity. As better technology are deployed, productivity rises and living standards increases. The non-scarce nature of technology make it arguably the fundamental driver of long-term economic growth. As more people emulate an invention, more people can benefit from it. Technological improvement creates a new, more intensive division of labor, increasing specialization and allowing for increasing productivity. As long as humans economize, they will continue to dedicate their reason to find better solutions to their problems. The driver of economics growth is not resources, otherwise is places with low population and therefore with more resources available pro capita will be richer than other places with more population. The driver is technological advancement, with societies with high population producing more technology discoveries and thus achieve faster economic and population growth. Another unique aspect of ideas and technological innovation is that they are very difficult to destroy, unlike physical property and capital. Once the wheel was invented, destroying any particular wheel would not have destroyed the idea of the wheel. And now we move to the last part of the presentation, is technological innovation connected with entrepreneurship. Technological innovation increase productivity, but they do not end economizing action. Humans still to economize and seek ways of improving their productivity, and the new innovation simply opens up more horizon for finding newer innovations. Inflation. According to Kelly book, The Economic Laws of Scientific Research, the advance of technology is not a linear model in which academic science findings are applied to produce technological innovation. Kelly offers a wealth of compelling evidence of the contrary. The increase in productivity of the textile industry in the 18th century came through the invention of craftsmen who owed nothing to academics. British agricultural productivity growth in 19th century came without government support for agricultural research and development, but from farmers and inventors. Most significantly, the Industrial Revolution was not birthed from the laboratories of scientists, but from the workshop of workers, sometimes illiterate. Thomas Newcomen, who invented the first commercial steam engine, was a barely literate provincial blacksmith who had no knowledge of whatever specific advance we suppose to have inspired the industrial engine. His work with pumps led him, after a decade of experimentation, to reverse the process of a pump in order to produce an engine. Similar cases for James Watt, Richard Travithick and George Stephenson, and other pioneers of engines. It is more accurate to say that the invention of the steam engine created thermodynamics rather than the other way around. A similar story can be seen with the invention of the airplane. At the beginning of the 20th century, the majority of the scientists were adamant that flight was not possible, even after it happened. Yes, it was two bike shop owning brothers who had no scientific training who managed to achieve it. Physics was then revolutionized to explain and rationalize flight. Technological innovation is born for the desire to achieve ends and secure profits by serving others. And now we can connect the properties with ideas. The question is, can ideas and technology be considered property? Remembering from previous lectures, scarcity forces humans to assign value to goods. Ideas, being immaterial, have no limit of their supply, so the available supply can always meet whatever demand exists. This precludes a market for ideas, unless the individual who possesses an idea creates a market for it by restricting the access. There are two ways of creating scarcity in the access to ideas in order to create a market value for them. The first is choosing not to disclose it publicly and to only disclose it to individuals who pay for it. The second is to make the knowledge public, but to use coercive power of the state to prevent others from using the knowledge for profit, like intellectual property laws, copyright, and patents. An excellent treatment of this topic can be found in the Stephen Kinsella book Against Intellectual Property. A key insight is that when information and knowledge of certain production process become publicly known, the only way to prevent others from using it is to impose restrictions on the ways in which they can use their own property. The only way to copyright published information is to make it illegal for owners of the published good to use their own property of ink and paper to recreate the copyrighted published work. Similarly, patents can only work by imposing restrictions with the threat of government violence on producers' ability to use their own equipment in a similar way of they described in a patent. Ideas are not scarce, so their demand can never exceed supply. There is no limit on how many wheels can be produced from the idea of the wheel. The absence of scarcity makes the application of the framework of property inapplicable to ideas, as there is no conflict over scarcity to be avoided. This makes intellectual property incompatible with property rights. A closer look at the benefits of intellectual property shows that they have been massively exaggerated. Intellectual property laws at the margin increasingly incentivize innovators to obtain monopoly licenses at the expense of innovating to meet customer demand. At the margin, these laws magnify the reward for obtaining state monopoly licenses for ideas and lead innovators to dedicate growing quantities of resources towards meeting that end, rather than seeking to satisfy customers. As example, in the pharmaceutical world and software industries, corporations can be increasingly seen as enormous patent trolls, whose primary focus is on hiring lawyers, patenting, licensing, and defending against litigation, while developing consumer software and medicine are increasing a secondary focus. In an excellent study of the patent and intellectual property system made by Levin and Baldwin, there is compelling evidence suggesting that the intellectual monopoly laws are counterproductive to innovation. The focus on patents directs companies energies away from innovation towards lawsuit and a patent arms race, where competitors seek to acquire as many patents as possible to use as bargaining chips to avoid getting sued and to derail each other with lawsuit. The high cost of drug development, usually cited as the justification for monopoly profit, comes predominantly from the cost of litigation and regulatory approval required to secure drug approval and patents. The simplistic view of intellectual monopoly rights is that they incentivize innovators, but on closer inspection it is clear that they have the opposite effect. Innovation itself always has a strong motivation driving it, and is facilitated by buildings on other innovation. Intellectual monopoly laws do not provide an added incentive for innovators as much as they hinder innovators by preventing them from building on the work of others. So this is another very important concept. And now we are at the end of our presentation, our lecture, and I will summarize which are for me the main points of this lecture. First, technological advancement is the continuous development and application of the new and better ideas and methods to the process of production. Labor, very important, is not a consumer good, but a producer good. If a production process is replaced, labor could be utilized in another production process. The driver of economic growth is not resources, but technology advancement. Fourth, the invention of the steam engine created thermodynamics rather than the other way around. Last but not least, the simplistic view of intellectual monopoly rights is that they incentivize innovator, but on closer inspection it is clear that they have the opposite effect. And with that, we are at the end of our presentation, and see you in one of the next videos. Bye!